Okay, welcome to the Fairbit Griffiths de Kock Racing webinar. We have a special guest with us tonight, James Price from Inglis. James, welcome along.
Thanks, Corey. Welcome to you, Matt and Robbie, and everyone watching on.
Now, we've got a fantastic photo there, as you've already alluded to, so we might flick past and get straight into business here, but probably our biggest sale, Robbie, of the year, the Inglis Premier every year.
Definitely, yep. This is where we buy most of our stock. It's always been a great sale for us, and we bought our Group 1 winner in the quarterback and many other very good horses here, and it's always been our biggest buying bench, so it'll be that again this year.
Yeah, and Matthew, your first Inglis Premier was last year, and it was actually the first opportunity for you to meet a lot of our owners because of COVID last year, so it will be great to see all our owners back again this year.
Yeah, Corey, we had the little marquee you can see in the picture there, and that was a fantastic day out, or a couple of days out. Really enjoyed mingling with the owners and getting to meet people, so it was great, and we're going to be doing that again this year, so hopefully we'll have the same numbers and more people coming to visit us. It was my first Premier sale last year, but my old man is joining us this year, and he's been to many of these sales and also bought many Group 1 winners and Group winners. So he knows a little bit about the sale too.
Yeah, and obviously, as you can see on the screen there, guys, for anyone watching, it's free to come along. We'd love to have as many of you at the marquee as possible, even if you wanted to bring the family out and have a look at how a sale works. It's always a great opportunity to mingle with the trainers, and especially having Mike de Kock there, who's a legend of racing, and it'd be a great opportunity to come and rub shoulders with somebody like Mike and pick his brain. But James, it's actually your first Inglis Premier as the big boss. So how are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, can't wait. Yeah, look, I was at Inglis for 12 years before being at going to Woodside Park, and joined Inglis again at the end of March, just after the Premier sale last year. But yeah, look, I wouldn't say I'm nervous, but it's a very buoyant industry, and look, we're hopeful of very successful sale, but I suppose there'll be a few nerves on Sunday morning, but really looking forward to getting stuck into it.
Yeah, and I guess there's a catalogue of nearly 800 horses, and for our guests, they're probably wondering how you put all these catalogues together. But I remember when you were at Woodside and you came on one of my webinars, and you basically said you used to work for Inglis, so you sort of know what they're looking for and you can tell them what to do. So now that you've got farms trying to do that to you, how do you actually get through and keep everyone happy, but put a catalogue together that the buying bench wants to attack, but also, keep the relationships?
Yeah, that's right, Corey. I suppose the process of putting this Premier catalogue together started back in probably really July last year, where we go onto the farms and look at the stock of what the vendors would like to sell in the following year. So it's a process that happens over about a 4-month period. Due to COVID, we've been locked down to Victoria. We haven't been able to get to Tasmania and South Australia, other states which we would otherwise service. We've had agents look at those horses for us, but we got 1,700 entries for the Premier sale for this year. So between ourselves here in Victoria, our New South Wales colleagues on New South Wales farms, and also Queensland and New Zealand, we've had to whittle that down to 800 horses, which we're absolutely delighted to put together. So in terms of how do we do it, we tend to give a horse a pedigree rating and also a physical rating. And then we have a benchmark that's required for the Premier sale, and we say, well, yes, that's acceptable with that pedigree score and also confirmation score. And we say, yes, you've got a spot in the sale. So, 1,700 gets down to 800, and of course, we're trying to work with vendors to get the best horses we can, where vendors might have entered them in another sale or what have you. So, but having seen the catalogue put together at sort of Christmas time this year, and now getting around Christmas time last year, now getting around and seeing the physicals, really, really happy with what the vendors have put up to us. There, a lot of time and effort goes into preparing these horses. So can't wait for your team and everyone else to be at Oaklands to see these beautiful young animals.
Yeah, and I guess a question that I often get in sales is, we buy horses at all of these sales throughout the year, and a lot of people can't follow. They struggle to follow all the different sales and differentiate between them. But from an Inglis perspective, what makes the Inglis Premier different to the other sales, and which sales do you have, I guess, and how do they differ?
I suppose our main three sales are the Classic sale, which has already taken place in Sydney. And then we're now moving on to the Melbourne Premier sale. And then in April is the Easter yearling sale, which is seen as the pinnacle yearling sale in Australasia. It averages some extraordinary sum of $350,000. Premier is a step below that. It will average somewhere between 150 to say 175 with a buoyancy of the market. And the Classic sale we've just finished we averaged about 120. So look, I think gone are the days of a specific horse has to be sold in a particular sale. I think there's the ceiling of what a horse can make is sort of being lifted all the time, particularly for a Classic sale and a Premier sale. Vendors can bring a horse and at the top of the market and know they can get top dollar. Whereas previously, probably the perception might have been that horse had to go to Easter. So in the last few years, we've seen horses make $1 million here at Premier, whereas probably 5 years ago that you wouldn't sort of anticipate $1 million yearlings. The Classic sale, what sort of horses do we sell in each sale? Look, every sale has fast 2-year-olds that come out of it. Every sale has, staying Classic type horses. And so there isn't a particular horse we look for to catalogue for the Premier sale. We like a nice diverse stallion, selection to just so the buyers can come here and find something they would like to put their hand up for.
And Robbie, I guess this sale for us, the main reason we love it is it has so much variety. But if you were an owner, if you were speaking to our owners to say, this is the reason you come to Inglis Premier with Griffiths de Kock Racing, what's the main reason to go to the Inglis Premier?
Well, I think you get a really good horse at a very fair price. I think that, a lot of the sales, in particular, the Easter sale, as James said, you get an average of 350,000. And unfortunately, Matthew and I have above average taste. So if you're looking at averages and you want to buy above average taste, you're looking at 350 plus. So it can be very difficult to buy the specimen that you want, that, as James mentioned a little earlier in the segment, that you have a benchmark to get into the sale. Well, as buyers, we have a benchmark that we want for our owners. We have a physical type, a pedigree type. So when we have our discussions with Peter Ford and our team about pedigrees and our benchmarks, well, that all adds up to a physical type and a criteria that has an average price as well. Quite often that is average or plus average, So when you're talking Sydney Easter, it can be in that 350 plus range, So with Melbourne Premier averaging around that sort of 150-ish, might be 170, it gives our owners a lot better opportunity. And with so many good horses coming out of this sale, like the quarterback and horses that race at the highest level, then all of a sudden it gives our owners the opportunity to be in the market for a Group 1 horse, and so many Group 1 horses have come out of Melbourne, like the one that, Mike de Kock raced in Champion that went to South Africa, Gugu and so on. And some of our greatest horses have been quite reasonably priced out of Melbourne too. So they don't always make average prices as well. With 800 horses in the sale, they can't always make average price, So there's that element of very fair buying also too. So all of those reasons rolled into one. I know it's a long answer, Corey, but that's why the Inglis Premier sale has always been probably one of the best buying benches. Hence the reason we buy so many, throw into the Super Vobis buying as well. Based in Victoria, it's the must buy for us.
Yeah,
Corey, I'll just jump in there and add to Robbie's comments. Yeah, we talk of an average of a sale, but two-thirds of the horses sold in the sale coming up will make below the average, and a quarter will make over the average. So let's say the sale is going to average 160, 170,000. If we look at previous horses that have come out of this sale, we look at the world's best sprinter, Nature Strip. He was $120,000.
Yep.
the current favourite for the Everest is Lost and Running, and he is favourite for the Canterbury Stakes Group 1 next weekend. He cost $40,000. Haydock, now retired, an exceptional sprinter. He cost $85,000. Santa Ana Lane cost $80,000. Geetra cost $40,000. So all of those champion sprinters have come out of the Premier Sale at very, very, very reasonable buying.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
Matthew, obviously, your first year in Australia, and you've been through all the sales, and obviously we've done a lot of research and collected a lot of data over the last 10 years worth of sales from our own stable perspective, and a lot of indicators point to buying horses at this sale to give us the best opportunities. But what I'll get you to touch on is the Vobis bonuses, because obviously coming from South Africa, something like the Vobis scheme is just an amazing opportunity for buyers to come in and get extra bonus prize money on top of normal prize money.
Yeah, Corey. I mean, you can go to the maiden and win a maiden, and your bonus stake is more than the first prize stake. And then, if you get a horse that's going to be kicking on from the maiden, you get all these Vobis races throughout the years that are restricted, obviously, to the Vobis qualified horses. And if you get a decent one, you can rack up a lot of money. We've got Daily Bugle. He's heading next weekend to the $750,000 sprint for 3-year-olds, and then you got races like the Showdown, $1 million 2-year-old race, and it's an unreal opportunity to be buying horses at the Melbourne Premier at that value and to be racing for stake money of such relevance.
Yeah, and James, if you just wanted to touch on the Inglis race series as well, for those that might not understand how that works.
Yeah, the Inglis race series is a $8 million race series that we use to incentivize buyers to purchase with us. I think our biggest point of difference is our races are spread throughout the year. They don't just happen on the one day, which sort of, if a horse is not ready for that day, sadly, they can't run for those bonuses. So with ours spread over a number of races, 2- and 3-year-olds, it's just a nice incentive. We've added another level to it, a pink bonus, whereby if 75% of the owners in the horse are female, they can race for an extra. It's about $200,000 on 4 different races, and the first race for that is the Inglis Banner on Cox Plate Day at the end of the year. So as well as Racing Victoria's prize money, Vobis prize money, there's also Inglis prize money. So whilst we have an incredible product, the racing product is incredible in this country. There's also the opportunity for owners to win a little bit of cash back with a decent horse.
Yep.
James, Sharani owns shares in 75% of the stable. Can you bring in a bonus for that next year?
Well, if she registers her horse, and yes, she's a 75% owner, yes, she will get the Vobis bonus.
I'll make sure that one of them I leave unsold, Robbie, so Sharani owns it. Is that what you're asking?
Sorry, Corey.
If I leave one of them unowned and unsold, so Sharani owns it, is that what you're asking?
No, I'm saying because she's in 75% of the horses, surely there'll be a new bonus just for her.
So
I think the focus should go on to Corey, and he's not selling them well enough.
So Robbie, just with partnerships in the industry, obviously we've got partnerships all over the country and across the world. But I guess being a Victorian sale, there is a little bit of parochialism that we want to support Victorian vendors and we want to support Victorian sires as much as practically possible while still giving yourself the best chance. Does that come into your thinking that you do like to see Victorian racing, always kick on?
Well, I think definitely. I think the most important thing is that the Vobis scheme, as we've been mentioning, if it happens to be Victorian based, fantastic. But the most important thing for our ownership is the revenue model, the funding model. And if the horses that Matthew and I fall in love with at the sales can give our ownership group that opportunity to have that self-funding model with the extra bonus and opportunities and the race series that James talking about, well, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the racing sort of runs itself, you know. So, and that's sort of how it works, and that's what succeeded for us in the past. And there's so many successful stories that we can talk about. So that's why we buy so often and buy so many at the English Premier Sale.
Yeah, and finally, before we flick to the next bit, James, as an owner yourself with Griffiths de Kock Racing, why would you own a horse with Griffiths de Kock Racing, and why would you want to join the crew at English Premier to buy with us specifically?
First and foremost, I suppose I've known Robbie and Matt for many years. Always got on well with them. Just enjoyed their company. Think they're just, transparent, knowledgeable, successful trainers, both in their own right. To now have joined into a partnership, I think the success of the stable is on an upward trajectory. Just really, excited to be part of the partnership, and I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah, and obviously, guys, we're going to get to a Q&A at some stage. So anyone that's watching, feel free to throw as many questions as possible, whether it's to do with the sale or anything else, and we'll help out as per normal. So obviously, the education for our clients is really paramount. So visiting the sales with us, we'd like to see as many people as we can at the sales. And that's partly two reasons. Obviously, we'd like to have buyers. But it's also really important for us to make sure that our clients understand the process and can be part of that process with us. So, Matt, I'll jump to you. But last year we had the guest speakers and those types of things at the marquee, and I got the feeling from a client perspective that everyone started to feel a little bit more a part of it, and I think that's always good for the stable.
Yeah, Corey, it's always enjoyable, and we seem to attract a good crowd. When there was guest speakers, and it was very interactive, and people get the opportunity to listen to people from around the world that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to listen to, and to listen to them live, and then go up to them afterwards and meet them and ask them their own personal questions. So that's a very, very good and unique thing that we started last year, and the fact that if you're interested in a horse, one of us can take you down, myself, Robbie, Corey, Joey, Peter Ford, we can take you down and have a look at the horse with you and discuss what we like, don't like, etc. Because it's all within walking distance of our marquee. So I think the client's experience on the day is awesome.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. And I've said down the bottom, obviously, to quote, let's create experiences and not purchases. I think that goes for obviously the sale, but ongoing. We want people to actually, if they have a question or they have a query or they have a concern, the feeling that they can come to us at any stage, and hopefully we can give them an answer or help if they're new to the game, help educate them along the way as part of our team. Just touch on the English Classic purchases here, Robbie. So I'll throw to you. Obviously, James was actually on the phone taking your bids, but he obviously did a good job because we landed 3, but we've got 2 that have availability still in them. So I'll let you touch on those 2.
Yeah, well, the Autumn Sun, filly Autumn Sun was an absolute freakish racehorse with one of the best pedigrees you could come across. So, being the Redouts out of the Galileo mare, one of the Aga Khan's best families, and with the race record like that, you would imagine that, he's got all the ingredients to be a super sire himself. So everybody's sort of jumping out of trees to get the first crop of his progeny. So we're doing the same. So we're excited to have her, and I would imagine that the value that we purchased her, given the prices that they've been selling for, she represents terrific value. So out of a great winning family, out of a half the Manager, so the criteria is to buy horses for the stable that have got all close Group 1 families, and she certainly ticks those boxes. All the nicks and crosses work, and she's very, very strong filly. So very excited to have her coming into the yard. Matthew and I are. So that's her. And the Merchant Navy is a beautiful colt that the breeders have retained a chunk in him. And he is a direct half to a Group 1 winner in single gaze. So you don't get much better performances than that. And once again, a really good stepping, striding horse, very much in the Fastnet rock mould. So Merchant Navy, another very, very good young stallion, great racehorse. Yeah, there's so much to like about both of these horses, and we're very excited to have them both in the stable. And when you see the endorsement of breeders retaining shares, you don't get much better than that. So we're very, very happy about them.
Yeah, and there is a little bit there, but the interest level is quite high, and there's a lot of people holding off to see if we get any they like at Melbourne Premier before, so they're holding fire slightly. But what I would say is, if you do like either of them, I will be selling to first in best dress, because that's my
You've probably got to be a
so.
little bit careful there, though, holding fire, because at the value that they are, you know, you're not going to get much better value, because you could hold fire and miss out, because to get those sort of pedigrees related to those horses for those values, they potentially could be horses that would be worth a lot more in Melbourne Premier. So I think that sometimes you know, get egg on your face, so to speak, to you know, to hold out. You know, I remember years ago when we bought an in Costa del Lago filly in Melbourne, the Easter fillies were double the price. You know, so
yeah.
you can outsmart yourself waiting.
Yeah, and James, you obviously were up there on the ground. You'd say they were pretty good value as well. I mean, there's only, I think, 9 fillies in the Melbourne catalogue, Autumn Sun fillies. So they are pretty scarce. So
they are very scarce, and I think they sold up to $950,000 already this year. And yeah, I really like that filly at the sale. She was presented on behalf of Glen Logan stud in Glen Logan Park in Queensland. And yeah, just looking at the photo there, she's got a huge girth for a filly. She's so strong, massive Gascon on her. She looks, you know, she's probably, I know she's from a staying family, but she doesn't look like a stayer there. She looks like she's going to be early. So she's very much, I mean, you look at, try and think of fast Redoute sons, and you sort of think, well, she kind of probably possesses strength like the Schnitzels possess. She's a very, very strong girl. And then the Merchant Navy, I think we look at, I mean, his oldest are 2-year-olds, and they're really starting to bubble along with the winners. And he himself wasn't an early 2-year-old. He was a later end 2-year-old and into his 3-year-old career, and was a real star when he became a 3-year-old. Obviously, we saw his feats on the track, and he was presented by Redbank North, who did have a lovely draft, and he looks like he's actually got a bit more quality than Merchant Navy. Merchant Navies can be a little bit what I call sickly in the hocks, but he looks like he's got a lovely set of hocks on him and good forearm, and yeah, looks like he's going to develop well, and not the Fastnet Rock head. He looks pretty handsome.
Yeah, and Matthew, we obviously tried to get Autumn Suns from the start. We landed 2, but we've also been trying to get a Merchant Navy for 2 years now. So we've finally got one in the yard.
Yeah, and I'm really happy with the one that we got, because of the Merchant Navies we've been looking at. They come in all shapes and sizes, but this one is to our liking. He really meets the eye well. Looks like a classic athlete. So really, really chuffed with what Peter Ford has selected for us on behalf of the team up there in Sydney.
All right, and we'll move to the questions. So we don't have a whole heap of questions. We've covered pretty much everything, but are there any questions, Robbie, you have for James while we've got him on?
No, can you just get the hammer knocked down quickly when we're on a lot? Can you organise that for us, James?
Sure, Robbie. If you just want to let me know what those lots are now, I'll get that done for you.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
And Matt, I might just touch, we were talking off air about our plans, obviously, for the week. Peter Ford was out there today. I head out Wednesday, but you're out there tomorrow. And we'll basically have the team on the ground from tomorrow onwards all the way through.
Yep. We'll be there, you know, from as early as we can till as late as we can, from tomorrow leading up until Sunday. And yeah, we look forward to seeing everyone out there.
And Robbie, on a different note, a couple of 2-year-old winners on the weekend. So we may as well touch on those while we're waiting for questions to come through. We've got a quiet audience tonight.
Yeah, no, the 2-year-old winners were very good. It was really pleasing to see Very Bubbly jump out and show everyone a clean pair of heels. She was good in the preview, but struck a little bit of interference. But then with the experience gained from that run, she was very good at Moonee Valley. And all going well, she'll head to Flemington in the Thoroughbred Breeders in a few weeks' time. She's just gone down to the beach this morning for a week. Little bit of a beach vacation for a week, and she'll be back next week. And then first starter, Fission, Kevin Wasey that bred him out of a mare that actually come out of the Premier Sales Nuclear Force in Costa del Lago mare that we trained for Kevin and partners, Jerry Ryan and partners. And he's a beautiful colt, and he stepped out really well. He's pleased Matt and I at home, and to see him win on debut was terrific. Russian Revolution. So yeah, it's nice that our 2-year-olds are up and about, and we're really, really pleased with them. So we've got the future looks really good for the stable when you're building the foundations that we are, and it can only get better because some of the ones that we've got, aren't bred to be 2-year-olds. So it's nice to see these ones doing it.
Yeah, and there are only a handful of horses that we've bought as a partnership that are on the track. So our stats from that crop are very, very good to start with. So that's exciting times ahead as more of them come to the fore. I've got a few questions here. First one from Stephen Frankel, who's involved in an autumn sun with us, actually, a nice colt we bought, but he's asking at a Griffith the Cock crew at the sales all the way through until Tuesday. So I'll let you answer that one, Matt.
Definitely. We'll be right there till the last horse that's sold.
Yep. And Trudy Brewster says, Robbie, are there any first season sires that we're focused on?
Oh, we don't rule any out. We don't want to be narrow-minded. We want to sort of keep all first season sires on the list until we've at least had a chance to look at the physical types. And then we'll form an opinion as we see them come through, and then we'll, if we want to knock any off, then we'll do that once we've had a look at the physical types.
And I think while we're on the first season sire topic, Will Setterino is just saying congratulations, Matthew, on the birth of your son Liam. He's a really good-looking young guy, so you're not a bad first season sire. So congratulations, mate, from everybody following.
Thank you, Will.
Sire, he's a sire of sires.
Sire of sires. And I come from a good sire line, so.
Yeah.
And Robbie, this is from an anonymous attendee, but it is quite humorous. Will Hasseltoff ever finish further than second? Better than second?
Well, we're hoping so. We're trying to organise a nasal extension at the moment just to try and win those photo finishes. But it'd be good if he did, because he's had plenty of them.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of seconds and thirds in recent times. So you could call that unlucky, but I guess if you're finishing in the frame every race, it's a positive. So it's not the worst thing that can happen. But we'd like to convert a few of them, which we did on the weekend, which was nice. So. Just here's one for James from Peter Stanley. How do the reserves get set in terms of the reserve price on each horse?
The reserves get set by the owner, and not always is the owner the vendor of the horse. The vendor who is the person who prepares the horse. So the vendor works with the owner to set that reserve. On most occasions, they'll talk to an Inglis agent to get some guidance on what we think, what that reserve, what might be achievable on that horse. In terms of a time frame, I suppose everyone's got every owner's got a thought of what they would like when the horse gets to the sale. But usually reserves are not set until sort of the morning of the sale, after the horse has been here on the ground, he's been paraded, and the buyers get through their second and third looks, and vet checks are done and scoping checks are done, etc. So usually and sometimes reserves can be set as the horse is walking in the ring, and if they're really disorganized, it's a bit of a shambles, and the auctioneer never knows what the reserve is. So it's usually a last minute thing.
Yep. And Sean Lockwood's asking, Robbie, are there any crosses that you look to actively avoid? which is probably not good to talk about before a sale that James is trying to
No.
sell horses in. But
No, true. Basically, if there's any historical data that is unsuccessful, or if there's a mare that might have a bad, producing rate of, say, 6 foals for 1 winner or things like that, you'll steer clear of anything that looks a little bit high risk. Just to have the percentage play in your favour. It doesn't always. It's not an exact science, so we try to just have the percentage play in our favour, so that we got more boxes ticked. I mean, that's a simple analogy to what we do, So that's probably the best way to put it in reverse.
I suppose I could add a little bit there when we're putting the catalogue together. In terms of the female pedigree, yeah, as Robbie said, we would mark a pedigree down if a mare has had a number of foals which haven't been successful on the track. And then if we look into a mare's race record, if they haven't had any progeny to the track, then we'll look at their race record. We know that buyers don't like to see a mare that was unplaced. If it was started twice or started 3 times, we give a higher rating to a mare that would have obviously has won black type and then is a city winner and is then obviously a country winner. We do that. In terms of nicks and crosses, we don't go into the nicks and crosses when putting a catalogue together of, how does So You Think go over Hinchinbrook mares. That's too much detail. We're looking to put 800 horses in a catalogue rather than sort of, I suppose, 8. So that's sort of a little bit of background information from the Inglis end.
Yep. And so that might take me to the next one here. I'll give this one to Matthew. How many horses would you narrow down your search for in a catalogue of 800?
Sure, that's a good question. You probably narrow it down to hopefully 10%, Corey. And then from 10%, you'll get a big cutaway in after the vets. The vets have done their reports and we've done our pedigree analysis. So that'll probably drop down to another, 50% of that. So it's probably about 5%. You'll end up on about 40, 50 horses. And then you go back and really have a look, second or third looks at them and try and narrow that down even further, to having 20, 30 that you really love and hope that's going to fall in your price bracket.
Yeah.
And
what you're going to find is you're going to find an outstanding catalogue of physical types, and that 10% will actually be 20% at the 2022 Premier Sale.
That's it. Yeah, it's a good problem to have. Yeah,
it's funny you say that, James, because I think last year we vetted about 3% to buy 1%.
You only vetted 3%, right? Okay. I will be talking to you on Saturday afternoon to see if that 3%'s risen, and if it hasn't, I'll find a new job.
But we shortlisted a lot more, but to pay vet fees on what's 3%? No, more. Hang on, we vetted. What did we vet, Matt?
We bought about 3%, Robbie.
No, we vetted 40 odd horses. So what's that?
That's 5%.
5%. Sorry, we vetted 5% to buy what we did.
Right.
Because we got outbid on quite a few. So that's how much we had to do. We shortlisted quite a few to come down to 10%, to end up vetting quite a few to come down to that, because you got outbid on quite a lot of them,
Yeah.
So that's how much work you end up doing to come down to what you end up buying.
Here's one for you, Matthew. David is asking if your father has opened a checkbook for you to bid with.
He hasn't. I'm hoping he's waiting till the weekend to reveal that one, Corey.
Yeah, birthday present for young Liam.
Yeah, maybe he's going to buy Liam some new horses.
Yeah. Craig McGill said, can you compare this upcoming sale with what you've had over the last 2 years during the COVID period? What have you experienced during that COVID period, James, and what are you expecting now, post-COVID or post the worst of it?
Oh, we probably don't take a great guide on the last 2 years of Premier. We take more of a guide in terms of how the successful sale will be based on the 2 sales that have taken place so far, which is Magic Moons in January and Classic in February. Look, the market's extraordinary. I think Magic Millions was up 14% on gross from last year. Classic has taken another step up. It was up 25% on its previous gross. So the market's very strong. The appetite for racehorses is extraordinary. So we look, whether we have a 20%, 25% rise, we won't know until the sale's over. But interest in the sale has been very good, and very pleased with the quality of stock that we've got on the ground. So hopefully, when Robbie and Matt get here over the coming days, they will see that, and they've got a better shortlist than they had last year.
Peter Ford was saying today that the quality that he's seen thus far has been outstanding.
Great. A lot of the ones that Peter would have seen today we've had over 50 yearlings arrive from New Zealand. They arrived on Friday. They've been in the grounds here, and that's the most number of yearlings we've had from New Zealand. So there's a lovely cross section in the catalogue. Actually, you look at the stallions. Obviously, you've got all your proven stallions like Capitalist, Deepfield, Done Deal, Fastnet Rock, Seamus Award, I'm Invincible, etc., Written Tycoon, and Zoostar. And then you've got the first season size, and then the Kiwi horses of El Manzor, of Ocean Park, Per Encanto. But there's a lovely flavour from Europe and Japan. There's a Camelot Colt and a Camelot Filly. I saw a Camelot Colt today in Esker Lodge's draft, and he's an absolute cracker. He's a star colt. There's in Blue Gum, they've got a Kingman Colt. He's obviously an extraordinary stallion in Europe. He's an incredibly regal-looking horse. Kingman's obviously the sire of Cinnawon. And then there's a Lord Canaloa filly in Merrick Station draft, and he's obviously the sire of Tagaloa, who won the Blue Diamond a couple of years ago. So there's a lovely flavour to it all.
Yeah, there's definitely international pedigrees across all the sales in Australia, which we've spoken about before. Now, a couple of questions here. Will Cedorino just says, does the stable have an overall budget that they stick to the sale, and how is that calculated? And Daniel Guthrie says, do you have a particular price range that you look at for these types of horses? So I'll just touch on that question. We probably can't say our particular price range, because when we're in the sales ring, if we tell people what that is, it's probably not a good idea to do pre-sale. But we certainly set a price before we get there, and we've done a lot of study around which price bracket brings us the best chance of getting Group 1 winners. But we won't probably allow to speak about that, Robbie. And then if you touch on how you set a budget, maybe a bit more broadly, that might help those guys.
That's a tricky question, because from a trainer's point of view, when Matt and I fall in love with a horse, it makes it a bit difficult, because then if you want that particular horse, you do tend to probably lift your budget a little bit more, and you'll try and work out a way how you're going to get that particular athlete into the stable. But you also too, then you might budget around what suits your client's portfolio and so on and so forth, So you work on historical data, averages of what the stands progeny have been selling for, and so on and so forth. You might use other sales as a bit of a guide and so on. But it does also come back to how much you want that particular athlete to be in the stable, and how much you think that it suits your ownership base too. Whether it's a he or a she, because if it's a female and that filly has a growing family, it's related to more fillies. All of a sudden you've got an evolving family that has a value that will continue to grow for you, and you have other fillies that are helping out the value of the family. Whereas if the filly's related to lots of geldings that can't continue the value, they're all the things you factor into what you're going to pay for that particular athlete and so on. So there's a few factors involved, and that's what we sit down as a group and work out our strategy and what we're going to pay and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I guess another question, Robbie, that could be on top of that is that there are different price brackets if you have clients that are asking for us to go to the sale and buy them a horse, or if you were to buy a horse completely on spec with no clients and not knowing what the interest level is until after we've bought it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, when you're buying on spec, and there's a fair chance that you might be the 100% owner yourself. And that's what happens when you buy on spec. You'll factor in a lot of those things I just mentioned. Then, you might know that you might be training the relation that's going well. You might know about something in the family. It might, as I said, it might be affiliate that's related. So you might have some sort of a protection clause because of that there's sort of activity going on that's going to protect the value of what you're purchasing. There's all these sort of topics that's going on inside your mind before the bidding strategy begins. So if those things come to fruition, all of a sudden, what you're buying all of a sudden goes up in value. So that if you are the 100% owner or 50% owner in the long run, that investment becomes an investment and goes up in value, and so on and so forth. So these are all the things that you look into, and they're the things that that Matt and I get you to look at, Corey. What's going on in the family? Is the baby named? Is it trialed? What did it sell for? You often see on the Inglis website there, and what the upgrades, you'll see it a little on the side there. What are the upgrades going on? All this sort of stuff. So this is what buyers do, and this is the access of technology these days. You can do all these things. BreedNet's a really good website to show information. So these are the sort of things, the tools of the trade. So that's the sort of information that you need.
And if there are, just on that, if there are any owners that would like to know which websites we use, where we look up these different bits of data, then we're always happy to share those, because none of those are secrets. They're all open to the public. So we're more than happy to share those. But sometimes, depending on what you're looking for, we won't know to pass that on. So if anyone has any questions, or they're looking for specific things, or they don't know where to find it, feel free to ask. Trudy Brewster's just asking if we'll look to form a ladies syndicate for the 75% female ownership to chase the pink bonuses. Now, the answer is definitely yes, but James, I'll get to you so you can explain how that bonus will work for everyone.
So basically, what will happen from our point of view is the first, as I mentioned before, the first bonus that is there to be won is on Cox Plate Day this year. So the horse needs to be entered for the Inglis race series, and those entries close at the end of July. And for those ownership groups which have paid up for the Inglis race series, they then need to register with Inglis, the ownership group. So we just basically, it's a registration from a Racing Australia, which says to Inglis that yes, 75% of this ownership group is females. So basically, it's just a registration process, and identifying the fact that the ownership group is 75% women.
Awesome. And Matt, is that something that happens elsewhere, or is that another one of those things that's really taking off in Australia and maybe leading the rest of the world in those departments?
It's a pretty unique thing to Australia, Corey, as far as I'm concerned. And there's many of these ideas in this country that really encourages ownership, and it's just fantastic.
And final one, James, what percentage of passed in lots in a sale are sold before the sale ends, generally?
Sold, passed in lots.
Passed in lots, sold before the sale ends.
At the classic sale, through the ring, we would have sold about approximately 88% of yearlings, and then by the sale end, the clearance rate rose to about 93%. So that probably puts it at about 5%, or 40 horses that were initially passed in the sale ring, which are then sold sold post sale ring.
And Robbie, just to touch on that as well, people might not understand why a horse would get passed in originally, but you touched on x-rays before, and quite often we'll see a horse go through the ring that we really liked. We had a high rating on it on the physical, and we thought maybe we can't afford it, and it goes through the ring and falls in our bracket, but you don't bid, and you don't bid because you haven't had it x-rayed or vetted at that stage. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, there's a multitude of reasons why horses are passed in. Sometimes it can be for no reason of blemishes. Sometimes you might look at a do no homework. For example, you might look at a horse and say, geez, wow, that's beautiful. It's impeccably bred. That's well over my budget. I'm not going to vet that horse. It's just going to be too expensive for me. And other people, other buyers will do the same. And then all of a sudden, there is no interest on that horse for reasons that they think it's going to be too dear. And then the seller might have a reasonably affordable reserve, and for some silly reason everybody hasn't done the homework and there's no bids, and the horse is passed in, and then everyone thinks that there's something wrong, and then you find out that there's nothing wrong, and everyone's running around like crazy trying to do their homework, and then the first in best dress gets the horse at a reasonable price. That's one extreme. The other extreme is when there's a small blemish and people get scared away by it, or they wait for the next lot that doesn't have a blemish, and then you go and negotiate and you buy the horse at a fair and reasonable price. And then sometimes the vendor might have, or the seller might have a price on the lot that's probably a little bit higher than, say, the market value, and then you negotiate down to maybe something a little bit closer to the market values at the time, you know. So there's a various amount of reasons why horses are passed in, and a lot of those passed in lots end up every bit as successful as any other lot in the sale. It's not a negative in any way. A lot of passed in lots are very, very good.
Yep, definitely the first one there, the top ones we think are out of our price range were usually fairly fast runners when it comes to that. That's the positive of having six of us at the sale, as one of us can be waiting at the stalls for the vendors to get back.
I said before about Nature Strip, world's best sprinter. He was passed in the sale ring.
There you go. Exactly. So
he was also bought once and then bought by someone else, wasn't he? They had him vetted and weren't happy with it.
Something like that.
I think, mind you,
a lot of horses are. There's a lot of horses that that have stories like that, and but yeah, certainly passed in horses are every bit as fast as there's a lot of horses that go under the hammer. So
you wouldn't shy away from them.
Never.
And we might try and finish off, but what happens, James, to the horses that are not sold in a sale like the Inglis Premier?
Sorry, Corey, say that again.
What happens to the horses that are not sold?
They'll obviously go back to the owner's property, which is usually the vendor, as stated in the book. And, they generally go through the breaking process. The owner will obviously, either the horse hasn't achieved a price that they wanted, so they will retain to race. They may split up the horse's ownership between friends and family. So that's generally, they may still want to sell the horse, but they may choose a different option in terms of they may sell it online. They may go to a breeze up sale later on in the year. So yeah, they sort of push on. There's plenty of other options.
Yep, and it is quite early. And Matthew, anything you'd like to add on the Premier sale other than make sure everyone comes and joins us?
Corey, just really looking forward to the week, and based on how successful the entertainment marquee was last year, that's something that I've been looking forward to since the last horse went through the ring last year, because it was just such a good time.
Yep, we also have a surprise there. So last year we had the whiteboard up and everything. This year we have something new and improved, so people will have to come along. And we're also drawing the prize for the meet and greet. So everyone that went into the draw for King Magnus to run in the All-Star Mile, the draw will be held at midday in the marquee on the first day, so Sunday. So anyone that's in that draw, be there. You get the chance to meet King Magnus, get the merchandise pack there as well. And I think they're waiting on you, Robbie, to let them know in the office how many merchandise packs we're going to give away. So we're hoping we might be able to even push that to a couple of merchandise packs for our lucky owners.
Rightio.
All right, and we might finish there. So thank you very much, James, for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
I know.
Good on you, James. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. And looking forward to everyone coming out there, because it was a great year last year, and it was good that people that can get out to the marquee and follow us around for the week. Thank you, James.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you,
best
James.
and best of luck, James, in your first English Premier as the boss. We'll certainly be trying to support you. So well done.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Robbie. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks,
Ciao,
guys.
James. Ciao.
Good on you,
Cheers.
Corey. Thanks, mate.
Bye.